I know what you're thinking about when you hear Coney Island. This is probably what pops into your mind. Nathan's famous hot dogs, beaches, amusement parks, the amazing boardwalk. But today's video has nothing to do with that. Instead, we're going to be talking about the Fort Greene Chaplains, the Stone Killers, a zip gun, and a teenager with a nickname of Weasel. And yes, we will talk a little bit about Coney Island. Chapter 1. The 60th Precinct in Brooklyn covers Coney Island, and Easter Sunday, April 10, 1955, was a busy one. Detective William Connell of the 60th Squad was on patrol that evening, and at 4 p.m., about 40 members of the Chaplains and Stone Killers gangs, what a name, fought a pitched battle on Surf Avenue and West 8th Street. This was very audacious because the precinct headquarters was literally on the same street. Detective Connell and his partner arrived on the scene. The fight broke up and a total of 11 of the 40 youths were arrested by the police. 2 of them were caught with zip guns and 3 had knives. Connell and his partner Stephen Crowley, they weren't happy with arresting less than half of the total amount of gangsters who were in the fight. So they returned to the scene an hour later at 5 p.m., just in case trouble erupted again. Their instincts were very good. On Surf Avenue and West 8th Street, where the rumble happened a mere hour before, they saw a group of 5 teenagers standing around. One of them was identified as one of the participants in the rumble. Detective Connell identified himself and arrested Major Hartridge. Connell searched Major and found a zip gun stuck in the waistband of his trousers. As he was holding Major by the sleeve, Detective Connell turned to search one of the other boys, and as he did so, Major broke away and fled. He had made his great escape. Detective Connell tried chasing him for 2 blocks, but the heavy Easter Sunday crowds made it difficult, and Major slipped away. The other 4 youths told the detectives that all 5 of them had participated in the rumble earlier that afternoon, and they knew Major by his nickname of Weasel, and that he hung around the Fort Greene housing projects. Now, this bit of information is important because there were many Chaplains gangs in New York City in the 1950s. This meant that Weasel was a member of the infamous Fort Greene Chaplains. Now, I don't know much about the Stone Killers, the gang the Fort Greene Chaplains fought that day, but in 1962, the Fort Greene Chaplains murdered a 12-year-old boy in a rumble with the Stone Killers. But that was 7 years later. Let's get back to 1955. Chapter 2. Detective Connell learned from the housing police in the Fort Greene projects that there was a teenager known as Weasel who hung out in the projects, and he lived at 182 Willoughby. Unfortunately for the detectives, they discovered that Weasel had moved. So they requested the housing police to let them know if Weasel ever showed up again. Now, Weasel, he was tasting the good life of freedom for about 1 month when he got into trouble again. This time he was in the Fort Greene projects with about 6 other boys, and he was arrested for disorderly conduct. Apparently they had congregated in the projects, shouted, used obscene language, pushed each other around, and obstructed other pedestrians in the area. All of the boys were from the ages of 16 to 18. Now, the housing police were kind enough to remember Detective Connell's request, and they notified him that they had picked up Major. As Major was leaving court for his disorderly conduct charge, which, by the way, was dismissed, he was immediately taken into custody for the zip gun possession in Coney Island. The detective immediately recognized Weasel as the one he arrested and the one who had escaped. Without telling Weasel about the charge against him, the cop said, "I guess you know what this is all about." Weasel's reply was, "I wasn't in Coney Island that day." This comment confirmed to the detective that they had the right guy. When they took Weasel to the precinct for questioning, he denied being in Coney Island on that Easter Sunday afternoon and evening, or that he was searched by police, or that they found a zip gun in his possession. Weasel claimed innocence, and he had 2 different stories about where he was that day. He also denied being a Fort Greene chaplain, or a stone killer for that fact. And he also said that he never even carried a gun in his life. Weasel was vehement in his denials and he decided to go to court. And he stood trial, but he was convicted by a jury verdict. Both detectives testified during the trial that Weasel was the one they positively identified as the one who had the zip gun and escaped their custody. Now, a considerable amount of effort was expended on this investigation. Weasel even had an alibi witness who agreed to testify for him that he wasn't in Coney Island. However, he never testified at the trial. Now, Weasel said it was because he was in Philadelphia during the trial, but his alibi witness denied that and said he didn't even know the trial was going on, and he wasn't even notified by anyone to come to court. Now, some of the other gang members who were arrested also said that Weasel was innocent. It must be pointed out that all the youths who were interviewed seemed to have one interest in common, and that was to impress that Weasel was innocent of the crime. They persisted in this opinion even while saying they didn't even know him. All their stories seemed very, very well rehearsed. Chapter 3. Sometimes it takes time for the truth to come out, and in the case of Weasel, that's what happened. He was sent away to a reformatory, and when he was interviewed by the parole committee to see if he was eligible, Weasel's story changed yet again. This time it was changed to what I believe the truth was. Now, I'm going to read the minutes of the parole hearing to you, but before I do so, several years ago I received information from someone who lived in the Fort Greene Chaplains as a young boy in the late 1950s and early 1960s, and he saw the Fort Greene Chaplains up close and personal. He told me that Weasel was a member of the gang, not a leader, but a regular member, and he said he was a big brother to him and many others and took care of the hood like all the other chaplains did. Now let's take a look at what those minutes said. And I got them printed off here, and I'm going to be reading what I found on here. But before I do that, I got to take my glasses off because I can't see too well. Here's what the minutes said. Question: Major Hartridge. Yes, sir. How old are you? 18. Question: You are serving a 5-year reformatory sentence for carrying a dangerous weapon? Answer: Yes, sir. What was it? A zip gun. Was it loaded? Yes, sir. Why were you carrying it? Answer: There was supposed to be a fight. Question: You were expecting a fight? Yes, sir. Were you a member of a gang? Yes, sir. The Chaplains? Yes, sir. And see, it's interesting here how he actually admits that he was in a gang now, whereas before he denied it. Question: Have you met any of your former members here? Answer: Yes, sir. Some say they were in the Chaplains, but it wasn't in the same division I was in. I think he's referring to the fact that he was a Fort Greene chaplain and he wasn't a member of one of the other factions of chaplains in Brooklyn. Question: You were the only one? Yes, sir. Question: How do you rate your own division? Just a normal member, sir. Were you trying to establish a reputation? Answer: Yes, sir. What kind of reputation? Well, you had to have a bad reputation in order to have a good reputation in the Chaplains? Answer: I did have a bad one, sir. Question: How did you get it? Gang fights, sir. How many fights did you engage in? Not more than 6. Question: Did you ever use your gun? No, sir. Why did you carry it? Just bluffing, sir. With bullets? Yes, sir. That's a pretty strong bluff. Yes, sir. Question: If it was a bluff? Major, you may think you are pretty smart and know your way around and have all the right answers. Do you? Answer: No, sir. Question: What do you think of yourself? Answer: A cheap hoodlum, sir. Question: How long have you been that kind of a person? Answer: Since I started gang fighting. Well, how long has that been? Since 1953. Question: Now you are an entirely different boy? Answer: Yes, sir. Are you still a boy or do you feel all grown up now? Answer: Yes, sir, I know I have. Question: You did it all in here? Answer: Yes, sir. Question: What have you accomplished in your process of growing up? Answer: I accomplished a lot, sir. I believe I will go outside and make something of myself. Now, there's more to this, but I'm not going to read it all to you. I just wanted to read the part about the references to him being in the gang, which I thought was pretty interesting. Weasel was paroled on January 17, 1958, and he did well. He made a satisfactory adjustment on parole, and he turned his life around. He started dating, and he got his girlfriend pregnant. But they got married, and they welcomed a baby girl to their family on January 2, 1960. Now, while Weasel was on parole, he worked at a place called the American Adhesive Company. But that's not actually where he made his career. He made his career working for the New York City Transit Authority, where he got a job as a conductor. And he worked that job until the day he retired. In 2014, when Weasel was 76 years old, he passed away. I really like doing this video because I was actually able to find out what happened to Weasel. And even though most of the story centered on 1955 when the crime was committed and his time in prison, it's really great to hear that Weasel did turn things around. In my previous videos, that's not always the case. Thank you very much for watching. I would love it if you drop a comment below to tell me what you thought of it, or tell me what you thought about Weasel. I'd love to hear it. Thank you, and have a great day.